Good morning. Welcome to 5 Minutes in Mark. My name is Larry. I'm one of the teachers at North Park. And today we're going to be in Mark chapter 7. I want us to look primarily at verse 31 through verse 37. But first I wanted to lay a little bit of the background of where we're at and how we got here. So Jesus has been teaching around the Sea of Galilee in various settings, doing miracles, and there in chapter 6, it winds up with him walking on the water, calming the sea, walking on the water. And then in chapter 7, it makes a shift. The Pharisees come and they challenge him, and he has an exchange with them. And it's as if Jesus needs a break, because we see in verse 24 of chapter 7 that Jesus got up and went away from there to the region of Tyre. From the Sea of Galilee, if you go from there in a northwesterly direction, as the crow flies, about 35 miles, probably the circuitous route he took, maybe a 50-mile walk, it brings you to the city of Tyre on the shore of the Mediterranean. And Jesus is there, and he has an interaction with a Gentile woman there, a Syrophoenician woman, the text says, who asks him for healing for his daughter, and he challenges her on that. He tells her, I'm primarily here for the Jews, and so he uses that language there in verse 27, let the children be satisfied first, for it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. And this Gentile woman in humility says, yes, Lord, in verse 38, but even the dogs under the table feed on the children's crumbs. And he said to her, because of this answer, go, and the demon has gone out of your daughter. Jesus heals this woman's son. He goes from there, it says in verse 31, he went out from the region of Tyre and came through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee. Jesus takes a long circuitous route to the southeast side of the Sea of Galilee, to Decapolis, 10 cities, an area on the southeast side of the Sea of Galilee. And he's back in the region, and picking up the story in verse 32, they brought to him one who was deaf and spoke with difficulty, and they implored him to lay his hands on him. So they brought him an individual who could not hear, and because of that impediment, could not speak well. It doesn't say he was completely mute, but that he spoke with difficulty. If you've ever known somebody with a bad or a strong hearing impediment, the speech is usually very hard for them, maybe only a very few words to communicate needs. That's this man, and they bring him to Jesus. Jesus takes him then aside from the crowd by himself. Notice they told him, lay your hands on him, because often that's what Jesus did. In this case, he takes him aside by himself, puts his fingers into his ears. After spitting, he touched his tongue with the saliva and looked up to heaven. With a deep sigh, he said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And his ears were opened, and the impediment of his tongue was removed, and he began speaking plainly. An amazing healing of this man's hearing and speech impediment. Interesting, Jesus did it in his own way, not the way they had asked him to do it, but nonetheless, the man was healed. I wanted us to zero in for just a couple of moments here on verse 33. Verse 34. And looking up to heaven, after he had touched the man's ears with his fingers, touched his tongue, he looks up to heaven, and with a deep sigh, he said, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. Looking up to heaven with a deep sigh. What do we think might be going on there? Picture the God-man looking up into heaven, where the abode of the Most High God is, looking into the face of his Father, and with a deep sigh. What's the sigh about? He knows he's going to heal this man. But he's in Gentile territory here in the Decapolis, and the darkness is just everywhere. People don't even know who God is. So he's in the midst of that. And so we can see, even in that, the sigh of the God-man in the midst of a fallen world. And there it is, overt, in your face. But I think the sigh is even more than that. He knows he's going to heal this man. And he's going to heal his hearing, but he's going to heal his tongue. This man is going to experience a challenge he's never had before in his life, and that's the challenge of his tongue. He's going to speak freely. He's going to have hearing. What a wonderful gift to hear the birds and the waves crashing and the rush of the rapids over the rocks, all the things that those who hear well take for granted. But he's also, after experiencing the joy of communicating freely, he's going to experience the challenge of mastering his tongue. James says that no one can tame the tongue. It's a restless evil and full of deadly poison. Jesus, in another place in Matthew, says the things that proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and those defile the man. The challenge of the tongue is it's a restless evil, and we all face it. Jesus knows this. He sighs deeply. He knows what this man is going to experience. For us, here's the question. How am I doing with my tongue? Take it by extension, my pen, or my keyboard and mouse, as the case may be. Well, how am I doing with my tongue? Here's a thought. Let's be people who, like those in verse 37, look at verse 37, they were utterly astonished, saying, He has done all things well. He makes even the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. Let's be the kind of people like that who are utterly amazed at the power of Jesus to do all things well. And let's use the wonderful gift of hearing and speech to build up and edify those around us and not to tear down. Let's use our tongues well.